friendos, and welcome back to RimWorld Odyssey, where we've recently landed on our very first asteroid with our very own grav ship. Today, my friends, we are going to be completing a lot of the required research as well as building ourselves our very own base here. Funny enough, we had landed right near a large gap and couldn't walk on the asteroid until we tossed down a few wooden planks, that way we don't fall right through. Gravity might be quite low here, but it's important to remember we don't have any jump packs to get us back up if we start to fall. One of the first things we immediately noticed on the asteroid is that there was already some ancient tech here, one of which being these strange red boxes which upon further inspection appear to be ancient mining charges, basically demolition charges for mining operations. Something tells me they might be good for defenses. The captain would immediately start mining some samples of the asteroid, and indeed it is exactly what we need. Vaxstone. We wasted absolutely no time chiseling it into blocks that we could actually use for our large ship thrusters. But as we're mining out this new resource, we are also going to begin working on some research, and in this case it's going to be hydroponics. The reason for that, even though we do have a decent bit of food on board the ship, we're going to start eating through that pretty quickly, so we need to be able to start growing our own. While we're in orbit, it would seem that the ship has begun detecting a massive gravtech energy reading, and this confirmed our suspicions that we had prior that the mechhive is indeed in orbit around the planet. This was some very useful information, though we still don't currently have its exact coordinates. The more gravtech we collect, though, the closer we'll get to pinpointing exactly where this mechhive is. We currently know of 2 other locations with gravtech, so we'll try to visit those next episode. Today, we need a base of operations. Not only that, but we also need to make some pretty major upgrades to our grav ship itself. Thankfully, this asteroid seems to have a lot of compacted machinery to help us out with that. Important to remember before you do any construction on your grav ship, make sure your colonists that don't have any vac suits are sealed away in the kitchen or wherever still has oxygen and pressure, that way they don't get their brains sucked out through their eye sockets. Once you've done that, you're free, just as we are, to get rid of the old small thrusters and replace them with some great big ones once you've collected enough gravstone, just as we have. These bad boys are much more powerful and much more efficient. And with that, our ship is looking pretty darn good. Now, I would like to get started on turning it into a gunship today, and we might get a tiny start on that, but I think most of today's episode is going to be making an asteroid base for ourselves. Just so many fun plans that I have. Not to worry, we'll get around to all of them. But for now, let us begin with our mining of our new base. Now, you'll notice we are starting out with a 3-wide hallway. This way we have plenty of room. If for some reason we get raided and they somehow get inside, we won't be stuck having a little cramped hallway to run through, right? And just as well, the first room that we're going to be mining out is going to be for our growing zones. I do want to touch on real quick before I forget later on, we do have the seed for that certain type of bioengineered tree that would probably let us terraform this entire asteroid. For right now, I'm not going to do that. I want some feedback from you guys, and we just save it for now. It wouldn't take us long at all after that to finish up hydroponics research, which is going to be quite crucial to growing things here on the asteroid since we're not terraforming. And next up, we're going to work on solar panels. Being outside the atmosphere, I would expect that they would be much more effective here. But as we were educating ourselves on these new technologies, we were also getting raided by pirates. If you thought leaving the planet's surface meant that you were safe and sound, you are sadly mistaken, and unfortunately it would seem that you have severely underestimated just how infested this galaxy is with pirate scum. They have about the same amount of people that we do, but the problem is that 2 of our people don't have vac suits, so we are technically outnumbered. But even so, I believe I have an idea. What if we take these ancient charge mines and create bottleneck points where they'll have to come come through and we could try to blow them up with them. Yes, it's dangerous and crazy, but it might just work. The pirates were a bit more intelligent than we gave them credit for. They had split up into groups of 2, so Coleman would stay here and try to fend them off and to blow them up, while Sissy and Woody went to fend off the others. Initially, we weren't having much luck with our explosive ambush, but as we managed to pull back a bit, drawing them in even more near, we ended up snagging them. 2 down, 2 to go. The other 2 were approaching far too fast for us to have any luck trying to hit the explosives to kill them before they made it here. And given that they both had better weaponry than we decided to hide by one of the rock formations on the asteroid and wait for them. And by the time that they approached us, we sprang out, firing Sissy's pistol at their heads, and Woody would engage them with his axe. Though it was preferable we didn't have to try to aim to kill them right away. We could just make enough holes in their suits and let nature take its course. One of them had already been killed, and the other, after a quick shot from our pistol, had hit the floor. Her skills and traits were none too useful for us, but her vac suit, that, on the other hand, would be very useful. We decided to strip her of it while she's still alive, that way it wouldn't be tainted by her corpse. Now, this might seem quite cruel to you, as it did to me as well, but let me ask you, if we would have been the ones who were defeated, would they have offered us the courtesy of taking us inside and stripping us and killing us quickly? Probably not. Now that we have another untainted vac suit, we would immediately give it to Dragon the Neanderthal. The idea of a Neanderthal in a spacesuit up here on an asteroid will never not be funny to me, but funny enough, Dragon has a pretty decent mining skill and would come in very handy for the mining of our asteroid base. Well, actually it's like a 3 or a 4, but for some of our other people who have a 1 or a 0, I'd consider it decent. Strangely enough, here on the asteroid, we often have ship chunks falling. It would seem that maybe some of the space debris in orbit around the planet is often colliding with these asteroids. The more we're up here, the more we learn. We didn't mind this at all either, because we had already been using up a lot of our steel. Now, obviously, as we kind of touched on earlier, there were a lot of ancient mining machines here on the asteroid as well, and destroying these would give us steel slag, which we could refurbish into steel and thus replenish our steel storage. And if that doesn't show you how desperate I am right now to get a lot of steel, I don't know what will. As we were getting more steel, though, we had finally finished up our research into solar panels, which would be a perfect use of our steel as well as all the compacted machinery that we've been mining, thus giving us a passive way to generate power and also diversifying our power generation methods away from just chem fuel, which was also quite important because as we were creating our growing zone here with a hydroponics basin, a heater, an oxygen pump, and a sun lamp, it's important to mention that we were starting to run out of chem fuel for the ship's generators as well. Which isn't too big of a deal because we could power everything with enough solar-powered generators, but of course we want this base to be self-sufficient, not relying on the ship itself. That way when we leave, anyone that we end up leaving here will be fine on their own. And this is also why we ended up building a cutoff switch between the ship and the electrical cables that go to the network within the base. After some time, everything was finally ready. Well, of course, once we got rid of the vacuum and pumped some oxygen in. Now, I do think that plants create their own oxygen, although that could just be trees, enough that it actually counts. I'm not exactly sure. I am somewhat diving into this series a little bit blind, even though I've read the blog post and stuff. I didn't play anything prior to this. Regardless, though, we are now ready to go about growing our first crops, and of course, we're going with rice. Coleman, the filthy homewrecker, also had the bright idea that we should give our new asteroid base a proper name. As for now, I am going to be calling it Placeholder, as I would like for you guys in the comment section down below to provide me with some names that you might think are fitting. We also ended up building our very first comms console. This way we can start doing some trading with orbital traders. Shouldn't be too hard since we are also above the atmosphere. And we built an orbital trade beacon inside the ship so we can go ahead and start selling off some of our textiles and other things we we have to make some money and also to start buying some useful resources for a little project I have in mind, but I'll save that for later. Now, by this point, we have spent a very, very long time here at the asteroid, and during this entire time, Ditch hasn't got to leave the ship at all, and she is in desperate need of a vac suit. The quickest and most reasonable solution to this, as it stands with our current situation, was to take one from a corpse. And so we did. Now, obviously it's tainted. This is going to cause a pretty big mood debuff, but my god, she was going stir crazy inside the ship, and besides, we really needed the extra manpower. Without the suit, she's just staying inside, eating up all of our food and barely contributing. It would be different if we had a cryo sleep casket, but we don't, so we're just going to have to put up with the mental breaks like her psychite binges. And now she can finally join everyone else experiencing our humble beginnings here on this floating rock. Oh boy, ain't she a beaut? We still need quite a bit of work before it's self-sufficient here, and before anybody can stay here, but we'll get it done. Now, as previously mentioned, there are a lot of these mining charges still just scattered all around the asteroid, and we have been trying to use them for defenses, so on each side of the asteroid that comes around to where the ship is docked, as well as where the base entrance is, we started getting these bottleneck points once more, preemptively just preparing ourselves to use them against raiders. And while we're at it, we decided to go ahead and begin creating ourselves some barricades that are actually made of vac stone, since we just have such an abundance of it. That is probably one of the greatest things about mining out the asteroid for the base, is we get so much stone to use. And though of course the construction takes quite a while, by using it, it is a very durable material. I wanted to throw in some turrets to help us out, but by this point we were running dangerously low on steel, and we had basically gotten as much as we could from this asteroid and all the ancient stuff on it. Besides sitting around and waiting on more spacecraft chunks to fall, I thought that it could be a good idea if maybe we took the ship to another asteroid, but funny enough, none of these asteroids seem to have any traces of actual steel. There was uranium, silver, gold, plasteel, everything but normal steel. So while we were racking our brains about where we could go about finding steel, we were also going to begin working on the research into transport pods, as this method of transportation was going to be much more convenient and viable than flying the actual grav ship all over the place. It is important to mention though, along with the demolition charges here on the asteroid, we also have ancient transport pods that had previously been used to move ore and stone chunks back to the surface, and not only are these still fully operational, but as you can see, they are completely filled with chem fuel. It is a one-way trip, however. Using these transport pods does mean that we won't have a way back to the ship and to our new base once we arrive at our destination. However, we were becoming quite desperate as we were using up the last bits and bobs of wood that we had for chem fuel to keep the ship power on, and the issue is we can't build any more solar panels because, well, we also don't have any more steel. We had to do something. During this time, we would continue mining out the base, giving us some time to continue our research into transport pods before leaving the asteroid, and that way also we could maybe wait around and see if any more spaceship chunks fall so we can deconstruct them and that sort of thing, but none really ever came. Something interesting I thought might be worth noting though is that while we were mining out the rest of the base, we actually found an inner cave network inside the asteroid that didn't lead outside anywhere. This would also be useful later on. As for now though, it was time for us to head back down to the planet's surface using the ancient transport pods so that we could get some chem fuel as well as some much needed steel. Sissy and Dragon had landed and were going to begin setting up camp. A coastal region that was absolutely lush with plenty of trees and other vegetation. Perfect for what we needed. No doubt some of the ruins in the area, as well as some of these rock formations, are sure to have steel. Speaking of, one of these nearby structures from ancient times seems to be intact for the most part, so we decided to build a fire in there, as well as a couple of beds to keep us safe from any predators in the night, and to keep us warm, obviously. The vac suits meant that we really didn't have to worry about the temperature at all, but we like to take them off at night when we sleep, that way we can get nice and comfy. But we wasted no time. We were playing no games and we got straight to business just chopping down as many trees as humanly possible and stacking them up in a great big pile for us to use. Just as well, we had successfully located a few veins of steel ore ripe for the taking. Meanwhile, back at the asteroid base, shit. Here we go again. We had a couple of pirates dropping in. Thankfully, it only seemed to be the two of them though, so we did outnumber them. But that still doesn't mean we're not at risk of death, so we quickly expended what little resources we had left inside the ship on a mini turret. As the pirates began coming up to our barricades, our turret was helping us fire at them, although our inaccuracies was accidentally causing some of our demolition charges to go off, but that's okay. I would have preferred to have used them on a much larger raid, but I suppose as long as they're killing pirates, they are serving their purpose. Speaking of, the remaining pirate here got into a little bit of a kerfuffle with Woody, but Ditch ended up sneaking up behind her, hitting her in the back of the head with her rifle, knocking her unconscious. Thanks to not killing her right away, we could strip her and watch her suffocate out here in the void as we hauled her suit back into the ship. And now Ditch finally had a proper vac suit, one that wasn't just filled with dried corpse bile and blood and other disgusting things, and long gone are the days of that filthy mood debuff from wearing it. Back down at our resource collection camp, we finally built our biofuel refinery, meaning that we could turn these useless chunks of wood into some proper fuel to send back to the ship. However, while we were here, we ended up getting caught by the mechanoid hive, and it would appear that they are going to be sending mechs to fight us in 3 days. This put us in a little bit of a time crunch. Thankfully though, right after that, we did end up finishing our research into transport pods, and for any of you that might have been wondering how I was going to get them back to the base and to the ship and even send resources up, this is indeed how, but I'm sure you probably already knew. Since we're running out of time before the mechs arrive, we immediately started working on some little fuel depots and the transport pods themselves, and we wasted 0 time stocking them full of fuel and as much steel as we could pack in. And with that, we finally sent our very first care package back home. Perfect timing as well, I might add, as we were currently experiencing an eclipse up here and our chem fuel generators were really struggling to power everything without our solar panels, and it ended up ending though anyway, so whatever. Now that our resource camp is finally profitable with lots of steel coming back up to the asteroid, we can finally also begin building more solar panels, making the base truly self-sufficient away from the ship. Yes, I was just complaining about an eclipse almost making the base go radio silent, but with this steel we can also build more batteries. That way we'll be fine if another happens. Thanks to these oodles upon oodles of steel and fuel, we could also go ahead and start building more hydroponics basins, making more and more food, an overabundance of food realistically, but truly you can never have too much food. Besides, we hope to have a pretty hefty population at the asteroid base. The 3 days were up though, and the mechhive had arrived to try to kill us at the resource camp, but it was actually just one scyther. I'm sure you could imagine my relief when I realized we weren't going to be fighting 125 pikemen and lancers. I was very surprised. Is this the mechanoid threat that we've been running from this whole time? Dragon easily downed and killed this scyther with his spear. Perhaps we've been overreacting to the threat that these mechanoids actually pose, I thought to myself, as we continued working on the base. Not only were we going to continue mining out a few rooms for folks, a large storage room, a large hallway that is actually going to have something of a makeshift kitchen, which I couldn't decide whether or not I wanted to turn into a kitchen or maybe a prison, but since we only have so many pirates coming all at once, I thought a place to eat at and a nice place to cook at would probably be more useful, of course. You'll notice as well, around this time, we brought back from the resource camp the resources that we had left over, some wood, chem fuel, and some steel, and we also brought back Captain Sissy and Dragon. Mostly because we completely depleted the area of steel, and I didn't feel like having to deal with yet another mech raid, even if it was just one other scyther. Now that everything was finally mined out, and we had plenty of room to build in, we started with our storage area, adding in an orbital trade beacon with a great big beautiful spherical room here, with plenty of room to store all sorts of things, like all of our vac stone, which we are building basically everything out of, except for our sleeping bags, as I didn't really want to have to build any stone beds. They're not very comfortable, of course. And besides, we had plenty of cloth to spare that we had grown previously. And my friends, with that, we finally had our asteroid base. Obviously, this is not completed. There's so much more mining and construction to do, but we do actually have a self-sufficient base that we can leave people at while we take our grav ship out to do other things like quest and searching for grav tech, which is exactly what we wanted. This place was amazing. We all loved it. It was our own little paradise in the heavens, and nothing at all could bring us down. Except, it would seem that the mechhive has scanned and found our location here at the asteroid base. Now, you, just as I, at this time when playing, probably aren't too concerned. We just fought a raid from the mechhive and it was one scyther. Who cares? That's what I thought too. They would be arriving in 7 days, though we didn't pay attention to the notification until we only had a little over 2 days left, just as when they had discovered our resource camp. This notification gave us a little bit of a scare though, regardless of the fact that we had no idea what was to come, so we ended up building a couple mini turrets to help us defend the base for when the mechanoids arrive. Other than that though, we were completely carefree. We were even looking into giving people homes inside of the base itself, as these bedrooms that we had created were slightly more impressive and a little bit larger than the ones on the ship and would give people less of a mood debuff. Throughout this entire time, we've also been trading with orbital traders when we can, selling them many useful things from our ship like hyperweave that is also going to make us a lot of money. And when we could, we would also be purchasing many things from them as well, such as advanced components and plasteel. This was going to be a surprise, as I have something in mind, and I guess it still kind of is, but I'm bringing it up now so that you know we do have these resources in our possession. We even sold off some of our gravlight panels to go about affording all of these resources, so you know this little surprise is quite the serious item, I suppose. In the meantime, though, we were simply beautifying the base by smoothing the walls. That way everyone's bedrooms were nicer and just all the rooms in general were nicer. We had also started on research into a multi-analyzer, which is going to take a very long time, and realistically the only reason we cared about this right now is because it is a prerequisite for the shuttle research, which would allow us to create our very own. But then we ended up getting raided once again by pirates. Initially, I actually didn't mind them dropping in to try to kill us because they were going to wait a while and plan out their attack, which would mean that the mechanoids were going to drop in as well and they could fight each other. And so they would, but as you can see with all these drop pods, there were many more than we had anticipated. Scythers immediately burst from their pods and began fighting us. Dragon, along with Coleman, would put down the first and the other would get a lucky slice or two in on our gun turret before we could kill it. Once those two were down, we decided to check in on the pirates, who weren't holding up so well against the mechanoids. Thankfully though, they took a couple down with them, saving us the trouble. They were scattered all over the asteroid though, making it quite hard for us to take them all out with any of our explosives or anything of that sort, so we would have to resort to fighting them one by one, and in doing so, we would have 2 of our people go down. Woody and Ditch severely injured, but both still alive. Sissy and Dragon would scoop them both up very quickly to take them inside the base, as Coleman was dealing with the final scyther. I suppose he's not so bad after all. We immediately started tending to our wounded to ensure that nobody bled out on the inside of the asteroid base, and thankfully, with a bit of luck and a bit of skill, everyone would be a-okay for now. We would even manage to tend to one of the pirates going by the name of Nathan. That way we could rescue them and attempt to recruit them, if they would be so willing to join us, that is. But even after all that, something was off. The mechanoids had been defeated, but they were still coming. An imminent threat, not within 7 days, at literally any moment. We had to get the hell out of here. I guess it's about time I revealed my little surprise project to you. This, my fine friendos, is a grav anchor. You see, whenever you take the grav ship away from a map like this, the map is just completely gone. You completely lose it. But with a grav anchor, that is not the case, and you could actually come back to the map anytime you so choose. This was our home now, and we were not going to completely abandon it forever. No, even mechanoids couldn't keep us away from here. We may leave for now, but we will be back. With the threat of the mechanical menace dropping in on us at any moment, we had no choice but to quickly take everything to the ship as quickly as possible, not even caring where we threw down batteries or resources or anything, as long as it was on the ship when we left. But I'm afraid we've run out of time. They might be able to make us leave our home, but we will be back. And it looks like we'll be doing a lot of work when we get back as well. Ruthless machines. We've arrived at an ancient city in the Scarlands. It appears this place is currently experiencing a toxic fallout as radiation rains from the skies. We're currently looking for a damaged ancient reactor, so something tells me that we are in the right place. Let's hope it doesn't take us long to locate this, the other GravTech, and eventually that damn mechhive. I want to go back home as soon as possible. Hello, my good friends, and thank you all for watching today's episode of the RimWorld Odyssey DLC series. I do truly hope that you're all enjoying. As mentioned, this episode is pre-recorded literally right after the first episode, and to be honest with you, I'll probably start working on the third as well, just to try to get you guys as many episodes out as soon as possible. So yeah, I'm hoping everyone's enjoyed the first one. Again, it hasn't even released yet, so, you know, just trying to get a head start. If you guys want early access to these episodes, though, remember that you can subscribe to my Patreon under the Rat Specialist tier, and I get you these episodes out at least a day early than when I release them on YouTube, and I try to, of course, get them out as soon as possible, as early as possible to you guys, if that's something you guys would be interested in. I literally could not do any series without my patrons. They really help the channel, they really help me, and they make series like this possible. So if that's something you're interested in, it's there in the video description, and if not, that is cool too. But again, I really hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I love you, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.